Greetings. If you're watching this, it can only mean that you have enrolled in an online history class at Mountain View College. My name is Dr. Ryan Pettengill, and I'll be your professor for the next several weeks. What we're going to do with this video is go over some of the expectation, guidelines, and requirements for History 1301. So what I'd like you to do, if you've not already done so, is get a copy of the syllabus. Now, you can get a copy of the syllabus by logging into eCampus or Blackboard and going to our class, and once you're in our class, click on Content. You'll find content on the left-hand side of the page. Once you're there, there's a folder entitled Course Documents. If you open up Course Documents, the first thing that pops up should be your course syllabus. Download that, put me on pause, print it out so that you can follow along with me. Okay, so the first thing that we need to discuss is how you get a hold of me. Communication will be very important in a class like this, so it's important that you understand how you can get a hold of me. Easiest way is through email. You can see the email address at the top of the syllabus there. Generally, if you can get me that message before about 3 p.m., Monday through Thursday, I'm pretty good about getting back to you in the same day. If it's after 3 or if it's on the weekend, it's usually about a 24-hour turnaround time, but I'm generally pretty accessible then too. I do have an office phone number. I can't guarantee you that I'll answer it. I do have lecture classes that meet in the summer also. But nonetheless, you can feel free to leave me a voicemail. My office hours. I don't necessarily have them per se for an online class, but I can tell you that if you would like to meet with me, pre-arrange a time. Let me know what time works for you, and I'll respond back, make sure that it works for me. And you can feel more than welcome to meet with me face-to-face at my office, which is located on the campus of Mountain View College in W243. Now, this is History 1301, and what that means is we're going to be talking about early American history. So as a time frame, I'm going to be talking about the pre-European contact era. In other words, the time period before Europeans started showing up in the Western Hemisphere. And we're going to go all the way through to the mid-19th century, 1877. Now, 1877 is a very important year, and you'll find out why by the time that you complete this class. But in that time period, in those time periods, what we're going to be exploring is not just political history, and certainly not just military history. Those issues are important, but they're nowhere near the full extent of the story. I consider myself to be a social historian, so a lot of times we're going to be studying people and groups of people that don't always make it into history books. I'm talking about people like workers who were working either in the factories or sometimes in the fields. Of course, slavery is a really, really big deal. We'll need to talk about the slave world. Women, although things have begun to change in recent times, a lot of times people like Abigail Adams or Susan B. Anthony, they've been relegated to footnotes. We're going to explore them much more directly in our class. So as you can see, we've got a lot of different topics to interrogate over the course of the next several weeks. Now what we need to do is to talk about the reading list, your book list. Now the first book that you need, and you basically need this thing yesterday, is a copy of Frederick Douglass's My Bondage and My Freedom. Okay? Now if yours looks like the copy that I just showed to you, that's great. That's the edition that I use. If it doesn't look like that, don't worry. I don't care what edition, what copy, what cover, what boring historian wrote the introduction. None of that matters to me. The only thing that matters is that you get a copy of it and you start reading it as soon as humanly possible. Now, to ensure that everybody has access to this book, I've linked a copy of Frederick Douglass to our class. You'll notice a few folders underneath Course Documents. You'll see another folder entitled Online Texts. If you open that up, you will find a copy of the Frederick Douglass text in a PDF format. You can click on that and you can read it online. You can read it on your smartphone. You can read it, assuming that you have access to a free printing, you can print it out and read it that way too. So there is really no excuse for not starting the reading now, for the most part. Now, the next most important text that you need is David Goldfield's American Journey. Now, this is an e-resource. You can buy this at the Mountain View College bookstore. What they'll do if you go there is they'll sell you a code, and you should say, just so you have some frame of reference, you should pay about $34 or $35 for this code. And what you're going to be able to do is to take your textbook with you wherever you go. So you can complete this class on the opposite side of the world if you wanted to. Now, if you don't want to pay $35, in other words, you found the American Journey and you found it for cheaper, that's okay. I'm glad that you found it for cheaper. Just understand it's going to get kind of clunky in a class that's designed to be done anywhere. You can have a hard copy of the book. That's perfectly fine. Just get a copy of it, and the only thing that you might run into if you're not using the edition that I've pre-required is you very well may run into issues involving not knowing what page we're on, or the chapters might be a little slightly different, things of that sort. The last book that you need is a copy of this one, and this is a book by Paul E. Johnson, and it's entitled Sam Patch, the Famous Jumper. Again, if you have a copy that looks like mine, that's great. I think they're going for about $7 at the bookstore. But I've also linked this one online, and it's right underneath the Frederick Douglass text. It's a little clunkier than the Douglass text. In other words, it's in various parts, but nonetheless, it is free, and it's available for your use immediately. So that is the reading list. Now, just so we're clear, I am going to leave up to you a good chunk of the reading of this syllabus. So if you do have any questions that I don't go over here, please make sure and let me know. What I'd like to do now is go down to page 3 of the syllabus, and let's talk about the course outline. And what you're going to see on page 3, starting on page 3, is a week-by-week breakdown of what we're going to be doing. Now, not only will this tell you the topics that we're going to be covering, it'll also tell you the readings that you're required to complete and the assignments that you're responsible for completing. So, for instance, this week you are responsible for completing discussion forums 1 and 2, and I'll talk more about that in a second. You're also required to complete quizzes 1 and 2, in addition to the readings and the viewings of the videos. If you go down to weeks 2, 3, and 4, what you'll see is something very similar. I need you to be very, very familiar with this course breakdown, because I do my best to provide reminders as far as a quiz being due or a paper being due, but I don't always get to them. So the responsibility really is upon you when it comes to keeping up with the required assignments. Now, let me go to the grading breakdown. In other words, how you get the grade that you want to get for this class. You need to understand that there are 6 parts to this course. The first part is participation. Now, I know that begs the question, how do you participate in an online class? Well, very easy. Most weeks you're going to be required to complete a discussion forum. And what a discussion forum is going to do is it's going to ask you to answer a very open-ended question using 1 or more documents from your online readings, as well as the videos that I'll be showing to you, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, the participation grade, you're going to see 5 discussion forums over the course of this semester. Each of them are going to be worth 3 points for a grand total of 15 points. Basically, all I ask when you're doing these things is make it clear that you took the time to actually consider the question, and it's very clear that you read the document or documents that I've asked you to read. These discussions are mandatory, and if you don't do them, it will have a negative effect on your grade. The second requirement are the quizzes. Now, the first thing about the quizzes, they're open book. It's not a pop quiz-like approach to this, so you will be able to use your notes as well as have access to the document that I asked you to examine. Now, usually, not always, but usually, what you'll see is a particular document that the quiz will reference. It'll tell you to open up to page 44 of your online readings. and go ahead and examine that document and use it to help you answer Quiz 2, for instance. Now, what I'll need you to do to complete these quizzes, usually, not always, but usually, what I'll need you to do is open up the online reading section of eCampus. Now, underneath course documents, there's a folder that's entitled Online Readings, and there are 15 online readings. Basically what these are chapters, but each quiz will tell you to go to whatever online readings that it wants you to go to and look at the page number and examine that document. So open up the online readings, read the document that the quiz references, and use that document to help you complete that quiz. You will see 5 quizzes over the course of the semester. Each of them are worth 3 points, again, for a total of 15 cumulative points. The papers, you'll see 2 of them over the course of the semester. They're each worth 10 points, so that's a grand total of 20% of your cumulative grade. Now, Paper 1 and Paper 2 will be based on the readings of either Frederick Douglass or Sam Patch. Now, the reason that Frederick Douglass is so important for this class is that's the first major reading that Paper 1 will be based off of. So I need you to have some familiarity with Frederick Douglass, the arguments that he makes, and what he uses as his evidence if you want to do well in Paper 1. Each of these papers are going to be 2 to 3 pages long, and please double space everything. Okay. The midterm. I have 1 midterm and 1 final exam. Those are the only exams that I have in a course like this. The midterm is going to be worth 25% of your grade, and so is the final exam. So together, 50% of your grade is going to come from either the midterm or the final exam. Now, both exams consist of a combination of multiple choice, short answer essay, and usually 1 long answer essay. If you have individual questions with respect to the requirements or the breakdown of the grading, please let me know. Below the final exam blurb, what the final exam is about, you will see my grading scale. My grading scale is pretty much black and white. I do tend to round up. In other words, if you have a 79.999998, I do tend to round that up to an 80. But if you score a 78, the expectation is that's going to translate into a C. I don't grade on a curve per se. Like the requirements, if you have individual questions regarding the grading scale, please don't hesitate to let me know. One last thing before we wrap everything up. You will want to go to either the library as soon as you can, meaning the Mountain View College Library, and check out a copy of Shaping America. Now, Shaping America is a DVD series. It's a 3-part DVD series that is broken down into half-hour lessons. And once you pop in that DVD, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about with respect to lessons. Each week, you'll be required to view several lessons, and the viewing will take you approximately 2 hours per week. Now, the reason that I'm making you do this is because if we were to meet face-to-face, I would be lecturing to you. But since we're not meeting face-to-face, a documentary is the next best way that I have to convey some of the context of what's happening all around us in history. And this particular series does a very good job in doing that. Now, a couple things. When you go to the library, just tell them that you're enrolled in my class, Dr. Pettengill's class, and it's History 1301, and they should know exactly what one you need. Now, I'm not saying that this is a requirement, but it's certainly easier. If you do go to the library, please insist on getting the DVD and not the CD-ROM. If you do the CD-ROM, it's not going to be as user-friendly as your DVD. Okay? So that's one word of advice. Now, if you don't want to go to the library, or you can't go to the library, don't worry. I've also linked these videos online as well. You will see in eCampus, underneath course documents, a folder entitled Shaping America Videos. If you open it up, it'll take you to a link, and that link will take you to whatever lesson you'd like to view. It's the exact same thing. So you have a choice. You can check it out at the library and have it on hand, or you can watch it on your computer. It really doesn't matter one way or another to me. The withdrawal policy. Please make sure that you know the date of withdraw, which means that it's that last date before this class will appear on your official transcripts as a letter grade. But before you actually drop the class, please understand that there are consequences for dropping. The syllabus does a good job in terms of explaining what those consequences are. The last thing that I want to mention is toward the bottom of page 6 and onto page 7, academic honesty, or maybe more appropriately, academic dishonesty. This class has a good bit of writing that's required in it. Now, the writing assumes that it's going to be your own original, unique work. I need you all to be very familiar with what plagiarism is and some of the consequences involved in committing plagiarism. So what I'm going to do is two things. I am going to offer 1% of extra credit, and I will link that assignment in the course documents section of eCampus. And what it will do is it will take you to a website and it will ask you to complete a short quiz. I want to say it's like 10 questions long. At the end of that quiz, if you completed it successfully, it will ask you if you'd like to print out a certificate. Print out the certificate and I'll give you a place to upload it in the week 1 assignment folder. Okay? So I need you to be very familiar with what plagiarism is. The other thing I'd like you to understand is every assignment that you submit will be checked for plagiarism, not by me, but by the software that Mountain View College has purchased. And this software is very sophisticated and it will catch virtually anything that you could pick up anywhere on the web, including other students that have taken my class or are currently taking my class. Now, I'm telling you this not because I'm trying to threaten anyone, but I want everyone to be on the same page with respect to what will happen if you commit plagiarism. At the very least, you'll fail the assignment. If you plagiarize paper 2, you will fail paper 2, and that'll be a 0 out of 10 points. At the very worst, you will fail the course, and your name will be submitted to the Vice President of Instruction. Again, it's not a threat. It's more or less an expectation that you're going to take not committing plagiarism serious. That's all I have. Of course, if you have individual questions, if there's anything that doesn't make sense, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm looking forward to a very productive semester with each of you, and please don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions at all regarding the course.